In this video, we're pretty much going to discuss the details of industrial design career strategies. And I have Christopher Negrete here. He's one of my top students at CCA, also one of my first students, and he just graduated. So we're going to basically discuss his career journey, what his hopes and dreams are professionally, and how we can hopefully help to get him there by landing him his first professional job. But Christopher, you've done some contract work and stuff like that before, right?
That's right, absolutely, yeah. Some logo design and some one-off projects here and there for some clients, but yeah, pretty much exclusively just contract work that I've gotten through faculty recommendations.
Okay, cool. So one disclaimer I want to make to you guys is that, I don't have all the answers. I have been working in the field for a little while, and I do know some things. I've done some things, very right, and I've also done some things very wrong. So that's really the main purpose of this whole sort of series. It's basically to help you guys learn along the way with Christopher here so that, we can all basically just be better designers, because, man, there's some things that I really wish I knew when I was first starting out, and I think this will be really helpful to you guys. So where do you want to be in, let's say 20 or 25 years professionally?
Well, I think I would probably want to be in the ranks of maybe senior designer somewhere. Industrial design is most likely the field that I really want to pursue. There's a lot of different routes that I could go, but just me being a little bit short-sighted here, I think industrial design is still for me, and being a senior industrial designer at a consultancy or company, definitely some place with benefits and, just having a stable paycheck, that's what's really important to me. But also, if it were more off the beaten path, I'd be more than happy freelancing, and as long as we're doing something that's really satisfying to me.
Would you say that stability is your priority, or how would you sort of prioritize what kinds of jobs you're looking for?
I think right now, just in the economic climate, I really am focused on stability, and I would like to stay in California, so it's rather expensive, especially in the South Bay, but that's pretty much what I'd be looking for is stability, like financial stability.
Okay, and then creatively, are there any things that get you especially excited, whether it's parts of the process or specific product categories that you can talk about?
Yeah, I mean, ever since high school, or before high school, I've always been into tools and tool design, working with my hands, so model making is a really crucial step for me. It's the part that I learn the most from, and it's really exciting. And of course, the sketching is great fun, and but more specifically, I think the parts or the products that I would want to be focused on, tool design would be great, like hand tools or power tools. Love that. I'm also really passionate about pocket knives, multi-tools, and scale models for sure. Okay,
so basically building things with your hands, hand tools and power tools, and relatively stable job, probably not a startup.
Yeah.
Maybe a startup.
Depends.
Yeah, it depends, but just generally speaking. I know it's really scary to kind of commit to a specific type of job, but it's actually really important, because it's basically going to help you to tailor your portfolio and the way that you present yourself. So that's why it's so important. If you just are like everyone or everything to everyone, it's not going to work as well. So it's good that you sort of found a focus in terms of product category as well as the types of companies that you want to work for.
Definitely.
All right, so I'll look at it through that lens. You also mentioned when we spoke about just general, I don't know if I would call it dissatisfaction, but concern for environmental impact as it relates to industrial design.
Yeah, I think, in school, we're taught a lot, at least at CCA, it's more the philosophical side of design and more of the why about the process rather than more hard skill focused. Unlike a lot of other schools, like specifically Art Center, where they train you to get really great at sketching and model building, and some of them are the best of the best. I wanted to focus more on tailoring my future in industrial design to a more sustainable future. Making single-use things really bothers me. I've been really kind of focused on wanting to build things to last. That's always a focus in every one of my designs, at least in the portfolio. I like to design for disassembly or longevity with materials that are enduring. And one of the things that I've always been interested in is restorations, and specifically hand tools. And that's kind of what's led me to be so passionate about making things to last and endure, is to see how things were done in the past. It might be more expensive or whatever to make things to last these days, but I'm a firm believer into the right to repair. So that's why consumer electronics hasn't really ever been my focus, especially in portfolio. I've always kind of avoided electronic projects or consumer electronics related things.
So you want to avoid consumer electronic things because you feel that there's a lot of, I don't want to put words in your mouth, so tell me if I'm wrong. You feel that there's a lot of planned obsolescence involved with them? Would you say that's correct?
I definitely, yeah.
Okay.
I'd say so. Even though I rely on using consumer electronics every day of my life, maybe that would be kind of counterintuitive to join the industry and to help steer it along that way of sustainability. I know we spoke in the past a little bit about some initiatives Google's taking for that. So that's of interest to me, of course, still. But
so it's not necessarily the consumer electronics. It's more about their current habits around production.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, so you could work at a consumer electronics brand, presumably, if they were making the right strides towards sustainability, or if you were put in a position where you could positively affect that change. Do you think that's correct?
I think so.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm at this point, I'm really open to anything, and I would love to just join any company or consultancy if it means that I get professional experience, because that's what I'm lacking right now. I'm definitely open to opportunities wherever they are. I don't think there's a whole lot of industries that I would personally avoid besides anything related to weapons or firearms, perhaps.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you're pretty much open to anything, but you do have a certain subset of things that are most interesting to you, which are like things like hand tools, power tools, things like that, and a relatively stable sort of industry or company. Another thing is, how do you feel about process? Like, do you prefer more of a process-driven organization where it's very methodical and there are lots of reviews and revisions and it's very slow and steady? Or would you prefer a company where things get done very quickly and you're basically rushing to production in order to get a lot of products out quickly so that you can learn from the customer and things like that?
The latter sounds more, I think it sounds like more my speed, because I work pretty well under pressure. I tend to produce really good work under pressure, but I also am a little wary of things being made and released prematurely. And so that kind of ties into my wish to be a lot more sustainable in my process. And so I think maybe something that's a little bit more methodical and more iterative before production and release is probably my speed, just because I am such a stickler about details, and I tend to get really bogged down in small things and details and revisions.
So the reason why I'm asking is because typically the more stable companies tend to have a much more regimented process. Usually it is a startup that's going to be sort of, shooting from the hip, so to speak. That is something to consider. You're going to be in a much more process-driven organization on average, generally speaking, if you motorcycle. What was I even saying? You're going to have basically those two things are sort of opposite each other.
Yeah. Traditionally,
not always, but they often are, where it's like, okay, if you want to work at a stable job, you're going to have this very regimented process. So for example, I've never worked at this company, but from what I've heard from a friend, Boeing is probably one of the most process-driven, like regimented, structured organizations you could possibly work at, because I believe, let me know if I'm wrong in the comments. I don't even know why I say that. You guys will do it anyway. But I believe that, the margins on airplanes are pretty tight because of all of the R&D costs. And there are, insane regulations. And because of that, everything needs to be very, very structured.
Yep.
It's harder to be creative, like in an open way. Like it's creative in a different way because you're working within very tight constraints. So my point is that, that's just something to think about. And maybe you don't have to figure that out now, but are you willing to sacrifice a little bit of creative freedom if it gives you that little bit of stability, financial stability.
I think so. And I know that working in a position like that would probably be just another step in my journey. I don't have to. I'm comfortable with not having to commit to that 100% of my life. And definitely, I've always enjoyed working in a team and sacrificing a little bit of creative freedom, or even a lot, for the sake of putting something together with a team. That's fine.
Okay. So I guess the purpose of this whole section is basically to understand your overarching career goals. So you, in 20 to 25 years, you mentioned that you wanted to be just basically a senior designer. Would that be at one of these large companies?
I think I would eventually like to do my own thing. My parents have been pretty much freelancers for the majority of their lives. So I've grown up with businesses that they've started on their own, and that's just kind of been my model. And so it's something that I think I'd be comfortable with. Potentially after building up a little bit of a nest egg. I don't know what I'd like to make yet, but I've been interested in wanting to do some projects with some of my college friends later on.
Okay. So you're open to the idea, but maybe it's a little bit too far out.
Yeah.
At the moment.
I think so. Right, just
okay.
For now.
All right. And then the last question I have is, we talked about like what you're excited about, what kinds of jobs you're looking for. Is there anything that you think that you're especially good at? And you don't have to be modest here.
Okay. Well, I really enjoy sketching. I think that my sketching skills are a little bit untraditional for like the typical ID style of sketching. But I've always enjoyed drawing, and I like drawing out things to be kind of mechanically accurate. And so I've got kind of an engineering background, even though I haven't studied engineering. But it helps me to sort of see things and take them apart without taking them apart. So the sketching is definitely one thing that I know that I'm really good at, just in a more non-traditional kind of way. And then definitely model making, specifically with cardboard. I've always enjoyed building with my hands and making things work, engineering things to be functional prototypes. Just because I feel like it's easier to have a prop that you can work with and take photos with instead of compositing images in Photoshop.
Okay, that's really good to know. So you're really good at making things with your hands, and you're good at sketching. Would you say that's accurate?
Yeah, I'd say so.
All right, so here's what you guys can do, and this is what I'm going to say to Christopher as well. So Christopher has basically made a template for the kinds of jobs that he would be good at and that he can start to search for right away. So more specifically, Christopher mentioned that he wants something that's a little bit more stable. He wants something that is maybe in the hand tools, power tools sort of area, although he's open to that. And all of these things can change and you can be flexible with it. Another thing he said was that he's really good at sketching and making things with his hands. So now it's a matter of figuring out what kinds of companies are going to value that kind of expertise, okay?
Definitely.
So you can think about that. I mean, I already mentioned one of them. Boeing is probably a really, really good one for you. It is very regimented and structured, and it's a little bit dry, but I think that you could probably make it really interesting for yourself because they build prototypes constantly, and you're interfacing with engineers all the time. You're speaking with engineers all the time. I don't know why I said interfacing. You speak to people, you don't interface with them. But you're speaking to engineers all the time.
Cool.
So something like that could be really good. Something in human factors could also be really good. Cruise automation, for example, they're in the SF Bay area.
Nice.
That could be a really good position for you. I don't know how structured it is, but I know that they probably have a lot of things that need to be solved around, electromechanical functions and all these sorts of things. So we don't have to do it now, but I would, for you guys at home, that feels weird to say, for you guys at home and for Christopher, like, you should write down some of the companies that you would be a good fit for and see if you have connections with them. And we'll get into like basically how to reach out to connections, whether they're immediate connections or sort of, a friend of a friend or complete strangers. We'll talk about each of those things.
Awesome.
Cool. So here's the list of questions that I asked Christopher, and you can ask these questions to yourself as well. It'll be really helpful in sort of articulating what your next step is in your job hunt. If you found this content helpful, definitely leave a like and subscribe to the channel. It helps the channel out, and you'll get notified of when more videos like this come out if you're interested in learning more of this kind of stuff. Anyway, thanks again for watching, guys, and I hope you have a great day. Wait, I'm gonna sneeze.
Oh, okay.
You gotta edit that one out, Rohan.